everyone. How is everyone? Okay, you guys, I got a brand new camera, so I hope it works. I hope I look okay. I hope the quality's okay. I feel like it's a little bit fuzzy, but I got a brand new camera because I'm upgrading this channel and trying to deliver more amazing stuff for you. Okay, so I was busy today getting my hair done and running to Sephora and doing my normal stuff, being a mom, taking care of the kid, taking care of the animals, all that good stuff. And I started reading while I was actually at the salon about a blind item. Now, the blind item was in Crazy Days and Nights, so take it for what it's worth. Now, and it related to the Duggars. And in the blind item, it talked about how the Duggars investigation was due to, let me just read it here. They had no one to blame but themselves. So it says, and this is again, take with a grain of salt. They said, this massive reality family ultimately has only themselves to blame for the world of hurt they find themselves in. This is what happens when you bring in people from other countries and broker them to your friends in return for payment. However, a lot of this only came to light because of a different reality family. Not the reality family most closely identified with the massive one, although they have their own set of issues going on related to money laundering. No, it's the family that is much smaller in scale, but has been beset by their own legal issues as of late. When investigators started in on the smaller family mentioned the larger family. That in turn led to one branch of the government going in, which opened the huge trafficking can of worms. So, now obviously on the NT thing, which is, I think this is NT, Crazy Days and Nights, a lot of people were speculating, well, who's another reality family that is going through a lot of issues right now? Well, the Chrisleys, right? Now, they're saying the other family most closely connected to him would be the Bates, and they're saying it's not the Bates. And then so another family that is most publicly in the news right now for legal issues are the Chrisleys. And so on NT's website, they were making this like insane connection that somehow Todd Chrisley would have turned the Duggars in. Now, I don't see that possible at all. That doesn't even seem to be a remote connection. And I reached out to people that are connected to the Chrisleys, and they just said that there's no way that would even be feasible because they just don't know the Duggars in that way. And there wouldn't be, it's not like they have the same business, they don't live in the same state. So maybe another reality family, and I'd have to think of other families that are connected to them. I'm not sure. I don't really follow the fundy world. So if you can think of smaller families that are sort of in that same circle of them, of that fundy world, put that in the comments below. But what it made me think of was there's been a lot of discussion about it's related to trafficking and possibly other stuff related to child photos, right? Now, the government hasn't said anything, but that's not uncommon because the government will never make a public statement about an investigation. And in fact, it's more common that they be increasingly secretive about what they're working on so as to not jeopardize the investigation that they're working on or compromise the situation. So we don't know a lot. The Duggars aren't talking. The government isn't talking, but there's this whole hubbub, right? Because last week, word starts circulating on Reddit that they've been raided. And at first it was the FBI raided them. Well, the FBI comes out and denies that. And then on Tuesday, the Department of Homeland Security comes out and says, well, yeah, we don't deny that we were at the Duggars' home in pursuant to an ongoing criminal investigation, meaning they were at the house, but they weren't necessarily executing anything, meaning they could have been there for interviews, they could have been there to talk to people, they could have been collecting sort of like information through conversations, but not necessarily like a raid. But then they did admit that they were at the property that is where Josh Duggar's wholesale motor cars were located. Now, Josh is listed as the owner, theoretically, if a business is under investigation, the business owner would theoretically then be under investigation. Now, the Duggars denied that they were at all responsible, or I'm sorry, not responsible, that they were denied any investigation existed. They said, to the best of our knowledge, no one in this family is under investigation, which had a lot of people going, okay, they're at your house pursuant to an ongoing criminal investigation. They're at Josh's car lot pursuant to a criminal investigation, and you're not under investigation. Sure, Jan, you're right. So that made me thinking, like, is it possible that they don't know that they're under investigation, or they're just that naive, or are they denying it because they don't want to say anything? Well, that led me to looking into how federal investigations work, because I wanted to understand if somebody is at a point where they're being questioned by the authorities and have Department of Homeland Security people coming in and talking to them, theoretically, you would believe that they would know at that point, because if a government agency is raiding you, they would issue you a target letter letting you know that you are under investigation. Or if they're coming to interview you, they might not initially tell you that, but if they're going to execute a search warrant, you better believe they're notifying you that you're under some sort of investigation, okay? So that led me to a website called Burkham and Gorkoff. It's a law firm, which basically explains how federal investigations work. And so essentially what they do is they are determined by somebody either getting a tip, by the government getting a tip, or somebody filing a report, or something coming up through another case that would then indicate another crime. But typically an investigation does not move forward on a federal level without the preponderance or the assumption that a crime has occurred. They're not going to begin an investigation with the assumption that nothing happened here. They've gathered enough intel before an investigation would start with the assumption that a crime did happen, according to this webpage. So it says that the FBI is typically the one that's involved. However, other parts of the federal government can actually take over parts of investigations if the FBI, for instance, isn't like known for that specific specialty. Now, the FBI doesn't handle human trafficking, so the investigation would then be handled by who? The Department of Homeland Security, if we're to believe the assumption that it's, or rumor that it's related to trafficking. So basically what they'll say is that federal investigations typically would include maybe wiretapping, physical surveillance over a period of weeks or months, monitoring somebody's online activity, recording consensual monitored conversations, reviewing documents, financial documents, bank records, tax returns, issuing grand jury subpoenas for testimony and documents, executing search warrants and analyzing the material obtained, such as computers, smartphones, and conducting witness interviews and proffer sessions. And so they say that the federal investigation, the agents and the prosecutors are working with the end goal of bringing a federal indictment and securing a conviction. And so the agents are very well trained to accomplish this task. And they say that agents will sometimes show up unannounced. They may not even alert you that you're under an investigation. They may just talk to you to sort of gain a psychological edge. They may use deception as a part of their techniques. They can do a lot of different things in order to garner the information that they need in order to complete the investigation. But at some point in time, you would be notified that you are under investigation as the case ramps up and gets close. And typically, from what I've heard, and I spoke to someone who actually has experience having gone through a federal investigation, and they told me from their family's experience that if the government is at a point where they are conducting interviews and doing a search warrant, they're nearing the end of their investigation, according to that person. And it seems to translate to what I'm hearing in this legal part, because it says that once you have been raided or they've gone to your property, a federal prosecutor will formally notify you that you are the target of an investigation. So here's the part that makes, they send you what's called a target letter that lets you know that you are the target of an investigation, and it'll outline like what the charges are. So there's absolutely no way in my mind that the Department of Homeland Security would have gone to Josh's work and done what they were doing and not issued a target letter to somebody in that family to let them know that they were the target of an investigation. And because it's Josh's company that's being targeted, you would theoretically assume that Josh is a target in this investigation. So why wouldn't they say that they're actually involved in an investigation? Well, that seems to be more of a legal step, because according to this website, you don't actually want to admit to anything related to anything in relation to a federal investigation, because anything that you say could potentially be used against you and could potentially put the party that you talk to in a situation where they could actually be subpoenaed. So if the Duggars were to speak out and be like, yes, we are under federal investigation and this is what it's for, anyone that they tell that to would absolutely be party to that information. And then the federal government could go to that person and be like, all right, tell us what they told you. So from a legal perspective, it seems that the denial of the investigation is a route for them to admit nothing and not put themselves in a precarious situation where they would then maybe somehow put themselves in more jeopardy or potentially jeopardize other people by sharing information that could potentially put them in a situation where they're subpoenaed. I hope that makes sense. So a lot of people were like, why would they deny it? Well, this is what most logically makes sense to them. They're not going to say anything, and they're going to deny everything for that reason. They're not going to do anything. Okay. So why hasn't he been arrested yet? Well, I guess according to a lot of what I'm reading, I was on the FBI's website, I was on the Department of Homeland Security's website, and I've talked to others that have gone through federal investigations and through indictments. And it takes a long time for the federal government to build a case. And typically, they're not going to actually make an arrest until they have a solid proof. And they have, in many cases, what's called a grand jury indictment, which essentially proves that a crime occurred. So at this point, until they have everything that they need and have a grand jury sign off of it, nobody at the Department of Homeland Security is going to say anything. No one by the Duggars are going to say anything, because the Duggars theoretically don't know if they'll be arrested. It's wild, right? Which has led to so much speculation about what is happening. But I think it's pretty fair to say that if they were at their house and they raided his car lot, and now his car lot is completely empty and it doesn't have any cars on it as of this week, and that car lot has had a lot of issues with the city in terms of zoning and permits, and he was accused of actually running it illegally. The Duggars are also known to have a lot of different businesses, and if this is related to some sort of trafficking, which would be a common Department of Homeland Security crime, is it that they were using illegal things, or was it as a part of this trafficking thing, they found things related to Josh on computers? Were they going to the property to get computers and records? That's kind of what I'm going at. And that's why a lot of people have speculated that it's related to the child stuff. Obviously, we won't know any of this until an arrest is made. And apparently, it's probable that if they're this far into it and they have made known that the investigation is going on, that some arrest related to this investigation would happen soon. And it's making everyone crazy, right? Everyone wants this to happen. Everyone wants the perp walk because people don't like Josh. But we still don't know if it's Josh, if it's all of them, if it's one of them. We also know that some Duggars are doing their damnedest to separate themselves from the family. For instance, Jed denied any knowledge of an investigation and denied that he even lived there. Jill and Derek have been basically separating themselves from this family for a few years. Derek has been basically calling Jim Bob, a swindler, and he's a thief because he didn't pay his kids. He called his negotiation shady. He has been dropping hints that there is a storm brewing. And so theoretically, there's people in this family that seem to know that something is going on, right? And then you have Amy Duggar, the cousin, who is said she's ignoring everything and just focusing on her baby. And then the rest of them are kind of like, I don't know what you're talking about. We're gonna go to the park and look at Christmas decorations and everything's fine. So this is where we're at. And I wish I had more, and I wish I could tell you when, and I don't know any of this. But from everyone I've talked to and from everything that I'm reading, where they're at in this investigation means that there's something coming, and when it is and when it'll happen and what it is, I know for certain if it's a Duggar that's under arrest, it's going to drop a massive bomb. It's going to become a humongous story, and you know the media will be digging into it and dissecting every aspect of it. And you know that me on this channel loves crime. I love to cover crime. I don't love crime, but I love to talk about crime. So you know we'll cover it here. But I thought this was a good place for us to start so you understand, why hasn't he been arrested yet? So let me know if you are jiving what I've said. I'm going to link that website into the description of this video so you can actually check it out and understand more about how the investigations work. And if you have questions, concerns, if you've actually been through an investigation, hit me up and let me know. I actually learned a ton today by speaking to someone who had a family member go through this, and it helped me understand what is going on. And I can't wait to find out what this is about, because a lot of people have been waiting for something to happen, because there's been a lot of speculation for many years that there's been illegal things going on, but no proof. And it sounds like the walls are starting to close in. So at this point, I will keep you posted. I wanted to make sure that I gave you an update, and hopefully this was a little bit factual so you can understand where we're at. All right, you guys, I'll be back in a little while. I'm going to put my son to bed, but I have one more stream in the bucket for tonight. All right, you guys, bye.